Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into England's school system, and it feels like it's being squeezed from every possible direction. We're going to look at the incredible pressure building up on the money, on the rules, and crucially, on the very people trying to hold it all together.
Now this quote, wow, it really just gets right to the heart of the crisis, doesn't it? And look, this isn't some kind of exaggeration. This is the reality being reported by the unions. You've got school leaders stretched to their absolute breaking limit. And that's really the central tension we're going to explore today.
So, how did we get here? Why are head teachers swapping spreadsheets for sweeping brushes? Well, to really get it, you have to understand these two powerful, opposing forces that are just squeezing schools from both sides.
And here is the fundamental problem, right here. In a nutshell, on one side, you have the government just piling on these new, super technical demands. I mean, we're talking hundreds of pages of guidance on everything from AI to fraud prevention. And then, on the other side, well, the resources to actually do all this stuff, they're being stripped away. This leaves schools with some serious financial stress and, believe it or not, in some cases, literally crumbling buildings.
And let's be clear, this isn't just a few isolated cases. The sheer scale of this financial squeeze is, wow, it's staggering. Think about this. 7 out of every 10 schools in England have seen their funding cut in real terms since 2010. That is over a decade of being told, again and again, to do more with less. Okay, so this whole pressure cooker situation, it's not just about budgets and buildings, is it? It's taking a very real, very direct toll on the people right at the heart of the system.
You know, beyond just the crushing workloads, we're actually seeing these persistent inequalities getting worse. Take the gender pay gap. It's a huge indicator of fairness in any job, right? Well, right now, it's actually widening for most teaching and leadership roles. And that really threatens all the efforts to recruit and keep the best people in our schools.
And if you look at the breakdown here, the trend is pretty worrying. Okay, so there's a tiny bit of progress for head teachers, which is good, but the pay gap is actively getting worse for their deputies, for assistants, and for classroom teachers. You know, this isn't just a number on a page. It sends a really powerful message about how we value these absolutely vital roles.
Okay, so all this pressure we're seeing at the top, it was always going to have consequences down the line. And there is nowhere that this is more clear than with the kids who are just starting their whole school journey.
I mean, this number it's genuinely shocking. A massive 85% of reception teachers say they're dealing with children who are not yet toilet trained. So what happens? It forces educators to switch from teaching academics to providing really basic care. And that is a huge symptom of underfunded support in the early years.
And it's not just that. The problem is even more widespread when it comes to communication. An incredible 92% of teachers are reporting a drop in speech and language skills among their new pupils. That is a fundamental barrier to learning right from day one.
So, in response to these really alarming trends, the government has set a national target. The goal? To get 3/4 of all 5-year-olds to what they call a good level of development by 2028. And they're backing this up with new things like family hubs and more childcare funding. But the big question really is, can these programs actually bridge this growing gap?
Now, the entire system is clearly under strain, but there's one area where all this pressure has just erupted into a political flashpoint, and you can see the cracks starting to appear. And that's in the support for children with special educational needs and disabilities, or SEND.
And this crisis, it is escalated incredibly quickly. First, you get an official report warning that the budgets are just unsustainable. Next thing you know, hundreds of parents are protesting outside Parliament, and now it's culminated in campaigners promising a full-on rebellion against reforms they are terrified will harm their kids.
So what's the response?
A parliamentary committee has laid out this massive, comprehensive 48-point plan, and their message could not be clearer. Small tweaks are not going to cut it. They are calling for fundamental, system-wide change, starting with the totally broken funding model and demanding a lot more accountability.
Okay, so with all this pressure building from every corner, what are the actual solutions on the table? Let's take a look at the new policies being proposed and, of course, the fierce debates they're already sparking.
All right, one of the big new ideas is a mandatory reading test for kids who are 12 and 13. Now, supporters say, hey, this is a crucial tool to catch students who are struggling before it's too late. But on the other side, critics are sounding the alarm. They're warning it's just going to lead to more teaching to the test, it'll narrow the curriculum, and it'll just add to the test fatigue students are already feeling.
Meanwhile, what about Ofsted?
You know, the highly controversial inspection system. Well, attempts to reform it are really not landing well with people on the front lines. A huge 85% of school leaders feel that the recent changes are just, they're not enough. They're not enough to fix a system that they see as punishing and incredibly stressful.
But it's not all doom and gloom. There is a potential bright spot here. A major report, and this is a cross-party one, has completely reframed the conversation around post-16 education. They're arguing that further education, it's not some secondary option. It is a vital engine for the entire national economy.
And they're not just using strong words either. The report is calling for sweeping, concrete changes. We're talking urgent new investment, new pay structures to attract top talent, protecting really valuable qualifications like BTECs, and even redesigning the newer T-levels. The core argument is simple. Investing here is absolutely essential, both for young people's futures and for the country's growth.
So, when you pull all of these threads together, what do you get? You get a system squeezed by more demands and less money, a workforce on the edge of burnout, and the youngest kids arriving unprepared to even start learning. It's a system under extreme stress. And as that pressure continues to build from every single direction, it leaves us with one very urgent and pretty unsettling final question.